said, "Oh man, what happened to you? What country did you belong unto?"
So this
My
is a very
name is
interesting
Jeff,
story
I've
that
come for the
one of my friends
old
dropped in the Discord,
kingdom.
which, by the way, I've dropped in the comment below. You can just click on that link. Ben Crump calls for federal investigation after the bodies of 215 people found in unmarked graves near Mississippi jail. That'd be Jackson, Mississippi. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump is calling for a federal investigation on behalf of the families of 215 people found buried in a pauper's cemetery, or a potter's grave, or a pauper's grave. Potter's cemetery basically means where they dumped a bunch of unknown bodies and didn't tell anybody. Crump wants to know why officials failed to investigate these deaths and did not try to contact next of kin rather than burying them in a pauper's grave near a dirt road by the Hinds County Penal Farm, which is like a jail farm, which is about 15 miles west of downtown Jackson. The attorney also noted that there are several hundred more unmarked graves, totaling 672. That is a lot of fucking people. We're seeking to have the Federal Department of Justice come in and do an investigation to make sure that each and every one of these citizens, disproportionately black citizens, of course, whose lives matter will be... What? Whose lives matter will be identified. What does that mean? I don't understand that one. Okay. Their families notified and them given a proper funeral. Crump told PBS last week. Oh, I think there needs to be a comma here, because he dropped a political statement right in the middle of that. Whose lives matter will be identified. Okay. So they're definitely going to take the political angle on this one. Crump has joined forces with Reverend, don't know how to pronounce that, Hosea Hines, senior pastor of the Christ Tabernacle Church and the national leader of a New Day Coalition for Equity in Black America, to call for an investigation into the causes of the 215 deaths. The world may never know. It really saddens my heart to know that their relatives went that long, some over a year, not knowing if their loved ones were dead or alive, and then coming to the realization that they had been buried in a pauper's grave behind a jailhouse. So wait, how old were these bodies? They're old enough that, or they're young enough that families still don't know that their loved ones are not in jail. That's insane. People all across America are scratching their heads in disbelief about what's happened, or what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi with this pauper's graveyard. Crump said at a recent news conference. It went from talking about the water that was non-existent or contaminated to now we're talking about the graveyard. What is going on in Jackson, Mississippi? Yup, dude, what is going on? I'm going to have to see if there's any videos about this. I got another article pulled up also. Hines said that the chief of the Jackson Police Department, Joseph Wade, has instituted a new death notification policy that would give relatives information about their deaths and the cause. I have spoken with the chief, and he has told me he will implement policies and procedures to ensure this won't happen again and to hold these individuals responsible for what has occurred. There needs to be a real call for justice for the 215 black, white, Hispanic, and Native Americans who were buried behind the jailhouse, Hines added, according to the Crusader. $672 unmarked graves. This was no accident, and this was done not by one person. So this one's from NPR. Oh, the issue became national news last fall when several families said they had waited months to hear about a missing loved one, only to learn their relative had died months earlier and were buried in a grassy field, their graves marked only by a metal tag bearing a number. I doubt they knew that right away, and I doubt they were told that. We know based on the records from the coroner's office that since 2016, the last 8 years, so since 2016, in the last 8 years, we can identify 215 individuals that were buried behind that jail, and their families have not been notified. So they were only able to identify 215. So either they haven't gotten to the other ones, or they just couldn't identify them because they've been there for so long. So this has been happening. This isn't a new thing they just started doing out of nowhere. And it seems like it got worse. It is not a secret burial ground, she said. In those graves are the bodies of those who went unclaimed by family when they died. These parsons are either homeless people, inmates from local jails who died but relatives never claimed their bodies, unidentified persons who officials were never able to connect with family, or even persons who died, whose families couldn't afford a funeral. Wow. That's some straight up evil, satanic shit right there. Like, even if you don't know who they are, they deserve a town's funeral. Like, and you gotta report it. Like, did anybody besides this group of people actually know? Or anybody that isn't just regular people know? Did the government know that this was happening? A mother's grief drew wide attention last October. Betterston Wade told NBC News the anguishing story of how months after she filed a missing persons report about her son, Dexter Wade, she was finally told that her son was dead at age 37. The police also told her that county officials had buried him in the local pauper's field. What? Did they even try to figure out who this person's family was? Or did they know? Police investigators said Dexter Wade had been struck and killed by an SUV driven by an off-duty Jackson Police Department officer on Interstate 55 just hours after his mother last saw him. The police report said Wade was on foot at the time. Whoa. So, like, did they just cover up this straight-up homicide? The accident was investigated and it was determined that it was in fact an accident and that there was no malicious intent. There was no malicious intent. The dude buried him in the backyard, basically. But Lumumba added, officials had failed to inform the Wade family. Of course. They fail at pretty much everything. There was a lack of communication with the missing persons division, the coroner's office, and the police department's accident investigation. Yeah, because dude didn't want to get in trouble. I bet he was drunk. By the time Betterston Wade learned her son's fate, she had spent months looking for him, contacting police in Jackson, giving them potential leads, and asking for any updates about where her son might be. She also asked for help on social media to find him. So the government didn't know. So they covered up this. This is a murder at this point. Like, I don't care if it was an accident. This was murder. I just couldn't believe that he had disappeared off the face of the earth, and nobody knows where he was, she told NewsHour. I don't like how they keep adding things after the quotes. It turned out that Dexter Wade had a prescription medicine bottle with his name on it in his pocket when he died. Within days of his death, the Hinds County Coroner's Office was able to confirm his identity and share that information with police, but somehow Jackson police were unable to inform Wade's mother until last August. Yeah, when people started whispering. When Wade's family finally recovered his body, their attorney said that an independent examination found that the jeans he was buried in held a wallet, which contained his state ID, a credit card, and other identifying information. The fact that Dexter had a state identification card and several other identifying items shows us that there was a concerted effort to keep the truth and manner of his death from his family, Crump said, according to the member station Mississippi Public Broadcasting. There is no excuse, not even incompetence, for not notifying a next of kin of an identified man's death. This guy deserves life in prison, and anybody who was involved. Since the Wade family struggled to find Dexter, Payne said the Jackson Police Department has changed its policy to improve how it informs a deceased person's next of kin. Improves? What does that mean? Doing anything at all would be an improvement. That doesn't tell us anything. At least 2 other families are known to have been informed they have relatives buried in the field. In the case, there's 215. There's there's 600, over 600, over 800 at this point? I don't know. It's a lot of fucking people. I'm just going to say 1,000 people. The lag in communication was compounded by another issue, the Jackson Police Department's initial failure to disclose more than 20 homicides that took place over the course of 2023. In October, when the agency finally released the names of people who had been killed, Moore's family was shocked to see his name on the list and to learn he had been killed on February 2nd and buried in the same field as Dexter Wade. It is tragic to suffer the consequences of having to bury your child before you perish, Lumumba said last fall. But to add insult to that trauma, it is even more difficult to not have the ability to have a proper burial for your child. And the people who killed him straight up covered it up, and they were part of the government. The mayor said his administration regrets what the Wade family endured. At the same time, he emphasized that an investigation did not reveal police misconduct. Excuse me? Off-duty police officer hit somebody, they bury him in the backyard, and don't tell anybody? That sounds like misconduct and or malicious intent. But weeks after that statement, the Wade family was confronted with another hardship when Dexter Wade's remains were finally exhumed from the pauper's grave. Hinds County officials had informed Betterson Wade that her son's body would be exhumed and transferred to a funeral home on November 13th, in a process that would begin at 11:30 a.m. After months of uncertainty, the event promised a moment of closure, but as Mississippi Public Broadcasting reported, when Wade arrived at the field, she learned her son's body had been dug up hours earlier at 8 a.m. Why would they do that? As Dexter's body was transferred from the coroner's SUV to the funeral home's van, Betterson stared blankly into the black bag holding her son's remains and asked why they couldn't have at least buried him in a box. Whoa, man. Dude. That is absolutely insane. What the fuck? They just straight up threw him in a trash bag and buried him in the backyard like he was a dead cat. Our government, ladies and gentlemen. My mind is absolutely blown. I used to work in Jackson, Mississippi. What if I would have been killed and they wouldn't have even tried to identify me? They would have been like, well, I guess he's just gone, and put me in the backyard. And never to tell anybody. I bet a bunch of these people that haven't been identified were from out of town. Yeah, it doesn't look like I can find any actual videos other than like these mainstream news sources that are all just going to report the same thing. So, if anybody has some more information or another video, please comment that below, because I'd really like to know.